Theodore here from High Flow Drainage Solutions. Today, we're working on an interior waterproofing project. As you can see, we're going to be putting in a new sump pump along with an interior French drain underneath this basement's foundation. There are also two window wells or egress windows in this area that need the ability to drain the water that gets into them. Before we came to this project, these window wells actually had no drainage, and you can see the problem that this causes in this short little clip. Water just came pouring into this homeowner's house. I should also mention that we did the exterior system as well, and you can watch that video in the link in the description below. And because of that system, the egress window should never get that much water ever again. But this video is about the interior basement drainage system. So while we're adding a drainage system to these egress windows, we're also going to be adding in an interior perimeter drain or French drain along the foundation's walls. One side of this French drain will lead into the sump pump that the homeowner already has. The other side of this French drain will go into a secondary sump pump, which we are cutting out, digging up, and installing. What the guys are cutting up right now is actually a sewer pipe that we've traced. We're going to follow the sewer line and put our French drain right next to it. These window wells had a whole bunch of gravel at the bottom of them, but no actual drainage system. So we're using 5-gallon buckets to pick up all of that gravel, and then we're going to drill and install a drainage system for this window well, where the water will be redirected into a sump pump, which can then be pumped outside of and far away from the home. Speaking of sump pumps, this is a sump pump basin that we're going to be installing. You can see that we're going to recess it in the concrete, and we're using a level to make sure that it's level and flush with the floor. At the end of this video, I'll show you a quick view of the battery backup as well. You can see all of this water here should not be here. This is bad for the foundation, which makes this a perfect spot to put a sump pump to collect this water and pump it outside. Once the basin is level, recessed, and in the spot we want it, we slowly pour gravel around it to hold it in place. This is a good time to point out how all of the drywall in this area had to be cut up because water got into it and would eventually lead to mold if it was left here. Water in your basement is no joke. We're installing these solutions to make sure this homeowner never has to worry about it again. Here you can see the basin with the French drain pipe attached to it, along with gravel surrounding it so that it doesn't move. And if we look over here, you can actually see this is the egress window drain, where water that is in the window well will fall into this drain and then go into the French drain pipe, which will eventually make its way over to the sump pump basin. There's one of these in each of the window wells, and we've used hydraulic cement to make sure that this PVC stays in place and is watertight. I'm skipping over some of the steps here, but let's take a look at this sump pump that's being installed into this catch basin. You can see this green machine right here. This is the actual sump pump, the thing that pumps water out of that basin up to wherever you want it to go. In this case, we're pumping it up through the side of the wall to a designated hole in the wall that goes outside into the exterior drainage system. Here, Caleb's drilling a hole into the sump pump basin so that the PVC will actually rest on the footer there. Now, because the pipes for this sump pump system are actually going to be behind a wall, we're going to be attaching them to the concrete. This is because sump pumps have quite a bit of power, and if the pipes are not attached to something, they're likely to wiggle around and make a bunch of noise. Here's the sump pump piping all finished. You can see the pipe on the left is the discharge line where the water from that basin will actually be pumped up through and outside of the house. And then the pipe on the right side is our power connection. Alright, let's go back over to that French drain. This is the sewer pipe that we were digging up earlier. You can see we've dug up enough to be able to lay a 4-inch perforated corrugated HDPE pipe right next to it. Throughout this whole process, we've used 5-gallon buckets to take up all of the concrete that we broke up and the gravel underneath outside of the house. And we did this through the window well so that we wouldn't have to protect the rest of the house. We could just use plastic to tape off the stairs. Here's a better look at that window well drainage hole core that we had to drill. Just like you saw earlier, we're going to put a PVC pipe through this and then hydraulic cement to seal it. I didn't get a video of laying in the HDPE French drain pipe, but if you look closely, you can see it's that black pipe in there that we're now covering up with gravel. We cover it up with gravel because gravel allows water to seep through the voids in the air gaps of the gravel. Any water that's under your foundation or near the footer of your foundation will be absorbed into the gravel through the pipe and then be redirected into a sump pump. There are two PVC pipes that you will see here. The one that is horizontal is actually sewer, and we absolutely did not tap into that. The other pipe is from the window well, and that pipe taps into our French drain. Here you can see the interior perimeter drain that runs along the outside wall, right next to the footer. We did skip this section where a load-bearing wall was placed, but we used an auger to go underneath so that the concrete would stay intact. At this point in the video, we're done with most of our plumbing. We've backfilled with gravel, and so now what we need to do is put down plastic right before we pour and finish the concrete. Now the reason that we put plastic down is actually to protect the concrete from moisture coming up from underneath. This keeps the concrete strong, and it also helps it during the curing process so that moisture won't leak down into the gravel. Concrete curing is actually a chemical process, and if too much of that moisture leaves the concrete mixture, the final concrete will not be as strong as it could have been. Another thing to note is that this plastic can also help prevent radon gases from entering the home's basement. Now, to do this job right, we do need to drill some holes so that we can put rebar in here to connect the new concrete to the old concrete. You'll see Greg is drilling those holes, and this does take quite a bit of time. In places that we could, we tried to cross the rebar, and you can see how far apart we placed each section here. Once the rebar was installed and put on seats, the next thing we do is set up something called a mud mixer. This allows us to mix our concrete to the right proportions in the client's basement. The hardest part of this was actually getting all of this concrete down here. Once the bags are in the basement, you just hook the mud mixer up to a garden hose, plug it in, and pour the bags of the mix in. Now, this is obviously easier said than done, and I think in the end we used about 35 bags of concrete mix. Here you can see how simple it is to use. Tyler is pouring in a bag of concrete mix, and I will say it takes a couple of buckets to get the right consistency of concrete. Usually the first few buckets you get are a little bit dry. But if you're a DIYer or even just a contractor doing basement waterproofing work, this thing is well worth the money. There is one setting knob, and that allows you to control the proportion of water to mix. Another thing to keep in mind when you're using this mud mixer machine is that it's much easier to use if you have a team of people. You just saw Jason switch out one bucket for another. And having to do that while also constantly putting in the mix in the machine and keeping an eye on consistency and pouring it into the trench is not very easy with two people. It would probably be impossible with one person. You could turn the machine on and off, but you also might start to get some inconsistent mix. Anyone who's done it knows that concrete finishing is an art form. The main thing here is to make sure that the top is smooth and does not have any visible rocks in it. So as an overview, this project had two main problems. The first was that the egress window wells did not have any drainage system. They just filled up with water. The second was that the foundation had a poor drainage system. I think there were perimeter drains around the house. These are also called drain tile, but the problem is these are usually installed poorly. Whether there's no fabric or no gravel, or eventually they just fill up with mud, after a while they kind of become useless. And so both of these main problems, combined with a poor exterior drainage system, caused this homeowner quite the headache. To make sure that they never had to deal with it again, we installed a drainage system for their window wells, as well as installing an interior French drain, so that any moisture that might make it under their concrete slab, which you actually saw very clearly when we were installing the sump pump, would eventually be funneled into that sump pump and then pumped outside. We'd also love to hear if you have any ideas on how we can improve our work based on what we've shown you in this video. The next step is to finish the concrete, and this is a skill all of its own. I'm going to show you what the finished project looks like in a second, but all of the rest of the videos on our channel are about exterior or outside drainage systems. And if you thought us documenting this interior project was interesting, drop a comment below. It's been around 6 months since we've done this project, and the homeowner has had no issues with water getting in their basement or pooling in their yard. Here's a final walkthrough just so you can see. Other contractors are already in here fixing the damaged drywall. Now, it was really sad and disappointing that this water was a problem in the first place, but we're really glad that we were able to come in and be the heroes of this story. This client will never have to come downstairs and see their basement flooded again. At the end of the day, we got another happy customer and another dry basement. We are drainage experts in the Kansas City area. If you've got water in your basement or pooling in your yard and you want an expert to come out and make sure that the problem is fixed right the first time, you can go to our website in the description below and book your own consultation. We'll send our drainage engineer out to give you his opinion and an official quote. And from there, the decision is in your hands. We hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and until next time.